Alright, let's jump right into this lesson and talk about the Iron Curtain. The term Iron Curtain usually refers to the coalition of communist countries that emerged in Eastern Europe following World War II. Because Soviet-backed communist governments had been established in countries like East Germany, Poland, Romania, and others, the people living in these states were said by the Western democracies to live behind the Iron Curtain. The term thus connotates a barrier between oppressive communist regimes and the freedom of liberal democracies. Many people mistakenly believe the term Iron Curtain was coined by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. In fact, the term had been used in a variety of contexts way before Churchill used it. But what we need to understand is that it was Winston Churchill who popularized it and gave it its current meaning as a reference to the region of Soviet-backed states. In 1946, while visiting the United States, Churchill gave a famous speech in which he said, "An iron curtain has descended across the continent." The term has propagandistic value and usually connotates the brute strength and oppression that characterized communist government. The term Iron Curtain is sometimes used synonymously with the Eastern Bloc, Communist Bloc, or the Warsaw Pact. All of these terms are references to the group of countries who, in one way or another, came under the influence of Soviet Russia. Among the most notable countries behind the Iron Curtain were the Soviet Union, East Germany, Poland, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Albania, and Bulgaria. Now that we can define the Iron Curtain, let's look briefly at how it came into existence. If you remember from World War II, the Soviet Union attacked through Eastern Europe in order to invade Germany. When the war ended in 1945, Soviet troops occupied countries like Poland, Romania, Czechoslovakia, etc. The Soviets also occupied the eastern half of Germany, while the Americans, British, and French occupied the other half. Seeking a buffer zone of friendly states, the Soviets moved quickly to establish communist puppet governments in occupied countries. Okay, so maybe you're wondering why the US, Britain, and France allowed the Soviet Union to set up such a vast expanse of puppet states throughout Eastern Europe. Well, it's complicated. The Western Allies certainly tried, but failed to curb Soviet expansion. At the Yalta Conference in February of 1945, and at the Potsdam Conference in July of 1945, the Allied powers met to discuss the composition of post-war Europe. Under pressure from Western democracies, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin pledged to refrain from Sovietization and insisted he would allow free elections in occupied countries. Stalin failed to keep his promise, and through falsified elections and other secretive means, the Soviet Union helped install communist governments. Unwilling to risk outright war, there was little the Western democracies could do except stand by and watch as Eastern Europe fell to communism. The most visible physical manifestation of the Iron Curtain was the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall was built by communist East Germany in order to prevent its citizens from fleeing to democratic West Germany. Construction began on the Berlin Wall in August of 1961. The East German government claimed that the wall was built to keep its citizens safe from fascism. In fact, it was officially called the Anti-Fascist Protection Rampart. Although it was obvious its real purpose was to keep East German citizens from defecting to West Germany. Over the years, thousands of Germans attempted to scale the wall, usually at the risk of their own life. Some were successful, some were not. The Berlin Wall was very much a physical Iron Curtain. By the late 1980s, Soviet economic stagnation and other factors led to the dissolution of the Eastern Bloc states. The revolutions of 1989 began in Poland and soon spread to the other Eastern European countries. One by one, the people of these states rose up to dispose of their communist governments. In November of 1989, the Berlin Wall came down, and in December of 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved, thus signifying the fall of the Iron Curtain. Let's review. The term Iron Curtain refers to the coalition of communist governments that emerged in post-war Europe. The term is often used synonymously with Eastern Bloc, Communist Bloc, and the Warsaw Pact. While the term had been used occasionally throughout the early 20th century in a variety of contexts, it was British Prime Minister Winston Churchill who popularized the term and gave it its current meaning. He did so in 1946 in his Iron Curtain speech. The countries behind the Iron Curtain were the Soviet Union, East Germany, Poland, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Albania, Bulgaria, and others. Despite his pledges at the Yalta and Potsdam conferences to refrain from Sovietization in Eastern Europe, Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin worked behind the scenes to ensure that communist puppet governments were installed. In Germany, the Iron Curtain took a physical form in the Berlin Wall. The wall divided East and West Germany, preventing East German citizens from escaping to freedom in democratic West Germany. The revolutions of 1989 began in Poland and eventually led to the collapse of the Soviet Union, thus bringing about the fall of the Iron Curtain.